Welcome back, football fanatics, to the First and 10 Club with me, your host, Mark D, as we recap Week 7 in the NFL. Week 7 was exciting. We had lots of crazy finishes, fortunately, a lot more injuries, and only one unbeaten team remains. I went 3-1 last week on my show picks, and that's all thanks to the Atlanta Falcons. So we're going to start there for our recap. Atlanta versus Detroit. Look, despite the score, this game really didn't feel like the wide open game that I expected it to be. I mean, yes, we had some points put up, but I believe the Atlanta Falcons are honestly actively trying to lose. Look, nobody actively tries to lose. People that are coming out saying that Atlanta's doing everything they can to tank, that's not the case. I'm sure Todd Gurley feels like absolute garbage right now, but he knows this. He knows what he had to do, and unfortunately, his momentum just caught him up, and that ball touched the goal line. And you got to tip your cap to the Lions. Matt Stafford just drove them right down the field. We know that the Atlanta's defense is porous. I'll be honest, I'm surprised it even came to this. I'm surprised it was this close. I really did expect just a high-flying scoring game. I did not expect it to be a late second miraculous win. But tip of the cap to Detroit. They get the win. Atlanta back to losing. I really thought they would get 2 in a row. And it's curious to see what Atlanta does this year and where they go. It might be time for the reset in Atlanta. Coach and GM are already gone. Usually after that, you see some pretty big personnel changes too. So moving into another one of our game picks this week. This was my lock of the week, and I'll be honest, I was sweating it a little bit. Buffalo versus the New York Jets. Buffalo won. They got me the win on 6 field goals. 6 field goals against the crappy New York Jets. Buffalo, what happened? I mean, a win is a win. But I think it's painfully evident right now that Buffalo, especially Josh Allen, is really missing John Brown. They don't have that true take the top off deep threat. And that is just, I think that's just such a large proponent of Allen's game. And they just don't have a run game. Enough with Singletary. Turn this run game over to Moss. Let him get going. I think he is a volume carrier. I think he's a volume running back. What do you have to lose at this point? Give him 25 carries in a game. Let him see if he can be your workhorse. He's definitely shown a little bit better flashes than Singletary has. For the Jets, I'm not even going to waste my breath. Adam Gase, 8:19 a.m., Tuesday morning, the 27th of October. You still have a job, and I don't know how. That's where we're at. Maybe they're going to leave you in there all year because they want the number 1 pick, and they feel damn well confident that if anyone's going to get him to that point, it's you. Adam Gase, hire the guy that guarantees your team will lose. Enough of that. This one, the next game, got this one right, but man, this game was exactly what I expected. Pittsburgh versus Tennessee, and Pittsburgh pulls out this win, and in the most unconventional way I would have ever imagined, and that was a Steven Gostkowski miss to tie the game. Man, what he used to be, he ain't anymore. Remember when Gostkowski, man, he was just automatic, and he's had some kicking woes this year, and now this one really cost the Titans. It gives them their first loss. It wasn't a super long field goal either, but lots of offensive production in this game. Claypool, I've kind of hinted at this, that with Deontay Johnson back, he may have a reduced role, and man, did that become evident this week. Deontay Johnson on the field, healthy, just blew up. Now, here's the good and the bad news for Deontay Johnson owners. It looks like he's going to miss some more time. This is now, I believe, 4th injury of the year, and that's a little scary. That's the bad news. For the good news for Claypool owners, guess who's going to be geared up for another potential big week? So, Pittsburgh with the big win there. They are rolling, and they're heading into another heavyweight matchup, a division matchup against the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to have some pretty interesting thoughts on that game. But that's my teaser for Thursday's show. So you're going to have to come back and watch when we do our picks and predictions on Thursday. Philly versus the New York Giants. This was our Thursday night game. Yep, the NFC least. That win is a credit to Wentz just wanting it more, in my opinion. I really do, and I know I haven't always been the biggest fan of Carson Wentz, but man, he just makes it happen. And that's really what it comes down to. I can't believe the Giants put as many points up as they did. Maybe the Giants are starting to figure it out a little bit. I just don't buy that. I was really surprised by this. But Wentz, as much as Philly gets on him and feels that they need a change and they want the shiny new toy and Jalen Hurts, look, Carson Wentz is your best chance to win this division, and I would not give up on that. However, as much as I said that I give credit to the win to Wentz, the player of the game was the turf. The turf on a sweet tackle of Daniel Jones. I mean, the form, you can't coach that any better. It's like the turf tracked him down. They wrapped him up. And look, okay, if you haven't seen the YouTube clip yet, go to YouTube and click, search Daniel Jones tackles himself. Sorry, Daniel Jones, you will forever be synonymous now with this. And I feel bad because, this goes up there with Mark Sanchez and the butt fumble and, Josh Norman with the ridiculous stiff arm earlier this year from Henry. Something will happen in the NFL that'll take the heat off you. But throughout your entire career, people will always talk about how you tackled yourself when you had nothing but the end zone in front of you. All right, so talking about the NFC least, the other two teams that played, my Washington football team versus the Dallas Cowboys, which I still don't get how they're America's team. It's kind of sad if they're America's team. But, all right, enough bagging on the Cowboys. I'm a Washington fan. Look, Dallas might not win another game this year. If they don't figure that offensive line out, I don't care what quarterback you put back there. I just don't see it. And I hate to say this, I own some shares. Dallas skill players, God, you can't sell them right now because you're going to get pennies on the dollar in fantasy. But you got to hope that they have one game that it just looks like they have it figured out and they put up respectable numbers. And I would be selling on Dallas. I really would. And it's a shame I was very high on players like CeeDee Lamb and Zeke Elliott was having a hell of a year. With that offensive line, though, I just don't see how they are capable of doing anything. And now, on top of it, they're potentially going to be rolling out their third string quarterback at least this week. And we'll talk about the whole quarterback situation in Dallas. And I'll actually go to bat for a Dallas player. But, okay, so Washington wins this game. Okay, but let's not get crazy excited in this game. Did Washington look good? Yeah, Washington looked pretty good. They played the worst defense in the league. I would hope they looked good. I wouldn't start, ringing the bell that we're the division favorite. We only scored 3 points in the second half. And that's not really that impressive for Allen or anybody on that Washington team. Now, maybe it was coaching. Maybe it was the way they play called. Maybe they just went to a super conservative game plan with, letting the defense to shut Dallas down. But Dallas was undisciplined the entire day, and that's from top to bottom. Offensive line, defensive line, special teams, like everything. And that's coaching. That's a game. You want to get a team. Ron keeps talking about the division being wide open. And if you want to have a statement game, if you want to have a game where you propel yourself to 4 or 5 wins, that was it. You could have easily hung 30, 40 points on Dallas. And I think they should have put the foot to the floor. Put your foot on their throat. Just send a message. So, very happy for the win as a Washington football team fan. I I wish I would have seen more in the second half. 3 points is nothing to be super excited about. Moving on to our next game, the LA Chargers versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Well, there's not a whole lot to say about this game in terms of special plays. It was a typical football, grinded out, um, and play. There's no super spectacular plays, but there were some stars to this game. Robinson had a surprisingly solid game. But I think on the Jacksonville side of it is if they have not figured this out, then they're fooling themselves. Gardner Minshew was a great story last year when he came in and Minshew mania, and everybody likes the mustache. But the fact of the matter is he's not a franchise quarterback. Yeah, he's going to have some good weeks here and there, but honestly, and this says a lot, he's a poor man's Kirk Cousins. And I'm sorry, you don't necessarily want Kirk Cousins. So why would you want a poor man's version of him? He has some games where he puts up some great stat lines and he pulls off some amazing throws and maybe gets a win here and there, but he's just not consistent enough to be that linchpin franchise quarterback. I absolutely believe Jacksonville will be in the market for a quarterback this year, whether it's one of the free agent quarterbacks coming up or quarterbacks that'll be on the move that are a veteran, or possibly drafting one in the 2021 draft. For the Chargers, they have found their quarterback, and that is Justin Herbert. And man, does he sure seem like that linchpin franchise quarterback. Now, he's going to have his growing pains, but man, you cannot argue with 400 yards of total offense and 4 TDs. I know it's against Jacksonville, but that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to beat up on weaker teams, and man, did he do that. The surprise to this game was Mike Williams. 400 yards of total offense, 300 and I think 60 through the air, and Mike Williams was non-existent. And I'm sorry, man, we fantasy analysts across the board let you down on this one. We expected big things from Mike Williams, and I know there was a chance for Keenan Allen to be out, and Keenan Allen was the one who had the big game, but I thought there was more than enough to go around for both these guys, and the yardage that he put up through the air should prove that. I said Hunter Henry would have a big week this week. That obviously did not happen because they went to the other tight end. Unfortunately, that just happens. Sometimes those no-name players bite us in fantasy, but great game here for the LA Chargers, and Herbert is just going to continue to build. I don't know that the Chargers are going to have a record to contend this year, but with the way Herbert is going and the way things are going, plus you're going to get Eckler back in a few weeks, or you should be getting Eckler back in a few weeks here. I'd really hate to play the Chargers late in the season. I think if they're not in the running for a potential wild card, they are definitely going to be playing spoiler to teams. So, looking at two other teams from the Chargers division, we have the Kansas City Chiefs and the Denver Broncos. So, this was an amazing win for Kansas City in real life. It was a great win in real life football, not fantasy. Unless you played Kansas City's defense. Special teams with 2 TDs, a defensive pick 6. We had a 102. There was some argument whether it was 101 or 102. Who cares? 100-yard plus kickoff return. You don't see them very often anymore in the NFL. But man, Pringle, you got to love the Pringles. He found that seam and he was gone. I think Denver just had a bad day here, but usually this game is much closer. The division games in the AFC West tend to just always be close. Always sometimes, they're always ripe for upsets. Well, this was just not one of them. KC had a day. We had our first snow game. And Denver just really could never get going. And I just don't know if it was Locke being out of sync. He got some of his weapons back. But it just didn't look good for Denver. I'm chalking this one up to just a bad week. You played the defending Super Bowl champions. There were some plays that were just a little kind of demoralizing, and I just don't think Denver really ever got back to the field. And now the last team from that division, faced off against the new NFC Patriots. I mean, I'm sorry, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Um, Tom Brady is officially a bad man. Um, Look, Tom Brady is a talented quarterback. We've said that. He has done what I've asked him to do. And I know he went to a team that's loaded with talent. But look, they had their struggles. And some of these throws that he is making are not going to get anything to anyone special. Scotty Miller? Did you see the dime this man dropped to Scotty Miller? That's not some all world, all pro, future Hall of Fame wide receiver we're talking about here. That is on Tom Brady. And I think Tom Brady's making a very, very strong case right now for the doubters who don't believe that he is the greatest quarterback of all time. Look what's happening in New England versus what's going on in Tampa Bay right now. And like I said, don't get me wrong, he is surrounded by weapons. And with the new signing of Antonio Brown, if that works out, if Antonio Brown can come in there and actually keep his mouth shut and just be a team player, whew, I I don't know. Between the defense in Tampa Bay and the offensive weapons in there, man, they are just a juggernaut right now. I don't know that there is going to be a team that can stop them in the NFC. It may be just the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay is going to feature Tampa Bay, which I believe that would be the first time that ever happens. Um, yeah, just wow. The Raiders. I think the Raiders proved you can't run on Tampa Bay. And part of that, I know, look, John Gruden's livid. He thought the game should have been delayed in practice because of COVID and Raiders of COVID. Look, you know what? I have no sympathy for the Raiders. I'm glad they played the game when they were supposed to play the game, because here's why. I've heard 3 or 4 stories already about how the Raiders have been seen out in clubs without masks on and breaking NFL protocol. Well, if your team's going to be boneheads and do crap like that, you can't sit there and throw a temper tantrum, Mr. Gruden, because, you know, oh, we didn't get a fair shake. You got to help yourself. And your team seems to think the COVID stuff is a joke. And look, I'm not going to have a debate here whether COVID is legit or not legit, but that's the protocols the NFL has set. You yourself have gotten fined, Gruden, for not wearing a mask on the sideline. Follow the rules, do what you're supposed to do, and maybe half your team won't come down with COVID. I mean, sorry, you had an offensive lineman come down with it, you quarantine the rest of the offensive line. It is what it is. So, sorry. Maybe you should have called Spider 2Y Banana. Maybe that would have been a successful play for you, John. Maybe. So, going to Tom Brady's old team, the New England Patriots. Well, they faced the San Francisco 49ers, and I honestly thought that New England would potentially have the edge in this game. And man, I was wrong. Jeff Wilson went off, 3 touchdowns. Hunter, I mean, he had a day, but then he went off. Just like every other 49ers running back, they're snake bitten. It's kind of maddening to be involved in ownership of the 49ers running game for fantasy this year, because you'll have a running back that will do amazing things. Let's face it, it doesn't matter who you are. If you have a pulse, if you have skin, if you are upright and moving, Kyle Shanahan can turn you into an NFL running back. I'm thinking about sending him my resume. I don't know how he does it, but damn, is he not good at it. The Shanahan system just makes all pro running backs. So this week it was Jeff Wilson, and unfortunately, like the running backs before him, he then ended up injuring himself. And so now it's the next man up. Now, I had said in last Thursday's show about JaMycal Hasty, that it's a name to remember. Well, he didn't really pan out for you this week, but man, all signs point to him being the guy, maybe the primary and only guy for San Francisco in their next game. So if you did pick him up, hang on to him, because he definitely seems to be the next man up. As for New England, look, I cannot remember the last time that I have seen the New England Patriots this bad. I had talked that I thought maybe they were tanking, they were trying to get their next I don't think they were. I don't think that was the approach. That's why they brought in Cam Newton. And I think they had potentially some hope that this team would be going somewhere, or at least contending for a wild card, or maybe even the division still. But the fact of the matter is, the Patriots should be nothing but sellers at the deadline. With the trade deadline coming up, they should be selling off pieces. This team, okay, yeah, they might get some wins. They get some easier teams to play. They still have to play the Jets. And yeah, the fact of the matter is, they are just not that good. There are 4 or 5 teams in the AFC that are just hands down better than them. So it does look like the dynasty is finally coming to an end in New England. Um, and I'm okay with that. It, Look, dynasties are great for fan bases, and it's fun for that fan base, and even sometimes for the league. But it just can't go on forever. I think that's the important thing. Moving on, Cleveland versus Cincinnati. Wow, this game was the tits. Um, whew, this was just back and forth, throwing the ball around, scoring. It was like, hey, who needs defense? Let's just put people out there. They can kind of stand around, and that's how we're going to play defense. Because man, there was points being put up everywhere. It was exciting to watch. It was great. Surprisingly, the player that I predicted would be the highest scoring running back this week, Kareem Hunt, wasn't. He wasn't really that much of a factor in this game. This turned into the Baker Mayfield show, and man, did he absolutely ball out. Now, the funny thing that I want to talk about this, and look, I feel bad. I really do. I feel bad for OBJ. I hate injuries. I don't ever wish injuries on anyone. So please, OBJ, I hope you get better. I hope you get healthy. But I do find it kind of interesting that OBJ gets injured, goes out of the game, and Baker Mayfield kind of becomes a better, competent quarterback. It makes you wonder, in all honesty. I'm really going to be curious to watch the next few games coming up because I want to see how Baker Mayfield operates when he doesn't have to throw the ball to a primary wide receiver. And I think that's what he's had with OBJ. The idea was he had to throw the ball to OBJ. Well, he doesn't have that anymore. He can literally spread the ball across the field. And if you remember back to his first year when they brought him in, and all of a sudden Baker Mayfield was the talk of the NFL, that was the thing. We talked about it with Jarvis Landry. It wasn't that Jarvis Landry was going to see 10, 12, 13, 14 targets a game like he had been accustomed to everywhere he had played. They had said Baker Mayfield was going to throw the ball to the open player, and that's what he did after OBJ went down in this game. So I begs the question, does the Cleveland Browns get better because of the OBJ injury? This is going to be a really interesting story to watch throughout the rest of the season. So with that being said, Cleveland, hats off for a hell of a win. Baker Mayfield dropping that touchdown pass to win the game to Donovan Peoples-Jones, the Michigan product. Look, I know he got the touchdown at the end of the game. I still think Higgins is going to be your better fantasy pickup here. Maybe I'm wrong. But Higgins has a good chemistry with Baker Mayfield, and I expect to see a big uptick for him with OBJ out. Cincinnati, man, the future is bright for this team. I don't know if they do end up trading AJ Green. I think if they're smart, they would. Look, the guy's at the end of his career. You're trying to build a winning franchise. You're still a year or two away from being a dominant team. And by that point in time, AJ Green should be riding off into the sunset. If you have somebody that's willing to give you decent value for AJ Green, you should be moving him right now. He's proved the past 2 weeks that he is more than capable of being a serviceable wide receiver, even potentially a wide receiver one, dare I say it, still on any given team. And there's teams out there that are going to be looking for weapons. Green Bay is one of them. Man, could you imagine AJ Green and Devontae Adams in Green Bay? He should be on the block. And I don't want to get ahead of myself. We're going to talk about trades during the running out the clock segment. But so yeah, Cincinnati future is bright. Joe Burrow, he's a hell of an athletic quarterback. He can make the throws. It really is going to come down to him. Does he put in the work? Does he want to put in the work? Does he want to develop as a quarterback? Because he really could be special if he's willing to do that. So, talking about the team that we just suggested trades for, the Green Bay Packers versus the Houston Texans. Well, look, it really came down to this. Devontae Adams is really that damn good. Um, when Aaron Rodgers and him are clicking, and you saw that, that's all you needed. Aaron Jones was out of this game. No, Jamal Williams had a heck of a game. For all you people out there about, Dylan stealing goal line work, no, that was not the case. I think it's pretty clear what the pecking order is here in terms of running backs in Green Bay. It is Aaron Jones' show. If he is out, it is Williams, and Dillon is the fill-in. So it would take 2 injuries for A.J. Dillon to have a significant role in Green Bay at this point in time. Um, the interesting thing in this game was the touchdown to the tight end, and it wasn't Tanyan. And we all know, and look, I think Rodgers loves Tanyan. He has spoken about him and how he practices and in the team rooms and team meetings. But you saw Jay Sternberger get the touchdown this week. Now, look, neither of them really did anything great. Sternberger had a little bit better fantasy week because he got the touchdown. But I do believe that you're going to start to see a sharing of the workload for the tight end position in Green Bay. And sadly, I'm going to say what I think happens here is it makes it that neither of these tight ends are going to become viable options. And that sucks because, Tanyan looked like the ability to plug him into your fantasy lineups at a position where there's a lot of scarcity between injuries, between players just not living up to their expectations this year. This turns into something that I believe kind of steals the fantasy value. It'll be great for Aaron Rodgers and the team value, but again, the NFL and the real teams hate fantasy football. The Texans just couldn't compete this week. They really couldn't. Yeah, I know David Johnson got a touchdown, but Green Bay has been run all over. It just shows that, and I don't think it's David Johnson. I'm not trying to knock David Johnson on this. I just don't think Houston can run the football. I think they've invested a lot of draft capital into that offensive line, and I don't think it's a very good offensive line. I really don't. They made some very odd draft picks over the years. They gave up way, way too much for Larry Tunsil. Laramie Tunsil. Um, I just don't think, like I said, Texans are going to be hurting for quite a few years, I think, and that's all on O'Brien. I think he's going to go down as an infamous coach GM who really set that franchise back. So moving on, looking at the New Orleans Carolina game. So this the spread on this game was kind of going back and forth leading up to it because late into Saturday night, and into the weekend, we got word that New Orleans was not going to have Mike Thomas. On top of that, they weren't going to have Emmanuel Sanders. And, Carolina has been playing teams tough and, really looked to be kind of a surprise team there for a little bit. But the fact of the matter is, Drew Brees didn't need him. I think Carolina came out flat in this game, and New Orleans did enough to win. I think that's what it comes down to, did enough to win. Kamara necessarily didn't have the biggest of days. He had a great day yardage-wise, but no scores. And I think one of the things that you have to talk about where for fantasy, we were running to start whoever was facing the Carolina Panthers. And I don't know that that's an automatic thing anymore. They've shown over the past few weeks that, they've kind of tightened up that run defense a little bit. So you kind of have to watch these two things. Honestly, this game was nothing super exciting outside of, I'm sure, New Orleans and Carolina fans. It was a close game. But it's kind of with the point. You had some of your big stars not in there. Thomas wasn't there. That's who people want to see. Fantasy owners are clamoring for him to get back on the field. And then CMC, Christian McCaffrey hopefully will be back soon. I don't think he's back this week. Carolina plays on Thursday night. And I just don't see them forcing him back out in a short week. I think it's more realistic. He is practicing. If you didn't know that, he is practicing. Um, but I think they wait, and you'll see him in week 9. Um, Thomas, I don't know. There was a rumor that they were potentially willing to listen to offers for him to shop him. Sean Payton shot that down real quick. I cannot imagine you trading him. I know he's had kind of a rough go of things, but everything that I've heard about Michael Thomas is he's a pretty upstanding guy. So I don't know what's going on there. Maybe COVID's making him a little crazy this year, but one of the best players that's in that locker room that might serve a great purpose and it's not on the field will be Emmanuel Sanders. Emmanuel Sanders is a good veteran. Um, so having him there, maybe that kind of helps him calm Thomas down and get things back on track. I sure hope so, because man, the talent Michael Thomas has is ridiculous. It's off the charts, and I want to see him have a long, healthy career to see what he can do. So that takes us down to 2 games left. So the change and flexed game of the week Sunday night game was the heavyweight battle between the Seattle Seahawks and the Arizona Cardinals. And man, did the NFL pick the exact right game to flex to that spot. Because this game was just ridiculous, back and forth. Tyler Lockett puts up 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. You have Kyler Murray just balling out. Christian Kirk has emerged. I don't know of his availability in many or any leagues in fantasy, but if he is out there on your waiver wires, you need to go get Kirk. Absolutely, he has become a steady option for Kyler Murray. They have a connection. He has scored now, I believe, in 3 straight weeks. And multiple touchdowns in 2 of those. So go get him. The running game struggles again for the Cardinals, and it looks like the Drake is going to be out for a few weeks. It will be interesting to see if that helps or hurts the running game. Seattle potentially lost Carson. I don't know how soon he'll be back. He tends to play through a lot of these injuries. So you kind of have to watch your practice reports and injury reports on him. So all that being said, what this game really comes down to, heavyweight battle, tons of scoring. It comes down to a missed field goal for the Cardinals to win the game. And it's crazy. The short of it is they go to overtime, and Seattle just couldn't get it done. I was amazed. Seattle could not function in overtime. So Seattle gets knocked off. Arizona ends up off of a pick, which is uncharacteristic. Russell Wilson throws a pick. Not only does he throw a pick, he throws a pick to the rookie, Isaiah Simmons, who nobody has heard from. Isaiah Simmons barely played in this game. But they have said all along that they're going to bring him along slowly, and that's what they're doing. And when he was in the game, well, he made an impact. So hats off to the Cardinals. And the NFC West is going to be just a brouhaha the entire year. You have 3 teams with 5 wins, and there's only 2 games separating last place and first place. Like, this is going to be a slugfest. Can't wait. It's great football to watch. The play of the game, though, in this was there was a pick at the end of I think it was the end of the first half. It was earlier in the game. Towards the end of the first half, where Budda Baker, who, again, we talked about him last week, but Budda Baker just balling out this year, picks off Russell Wilson and is gone. It's a pick 6, or is it? DK Metcalf runs him down. I'm talking runs almost the entire length of the football field, never gives up, runs him down, and makes up about 10 yards to catch him and save a touchdown, which ended up being the fact they actually stopped the Cardinals. The Cardinals, they stopped them on 4 plays No points. No points out of that because of hustle. And man, every single coach in America, whether it's Pee Wee, whether it's high school, whether it's college, should be showing that highlight to their teams. Hell, pro coaches should be making sure that their team saw that highlight. That's heart. That's hustle. That's why I love DK Metcalf. He is becoming one of my favorite players in the NFL. And then going on to favorite players in the NFL to players I not really care for in the NFL, the Monday night game. The Los Angeles Rams versus the Chicago Bears. Well, this game had the exact tone and the exact outcome that I expected it. Defense. Defense, defense, defense. As a matter of fact, out of the 10 points that Chicago scored, 7 of them was a defensive touchdown. Chicago, are you finally starting to open your eyes and see that Nick Foles isn't going to cut it for you? You're not even exciting anymore. At least, before you made your quarterback switch, it was exciting. Curious to see what happens with Chicago here moving forward. Look, they're 5-2. I'm not saying that, the sky is falling there. But since Nick Foles has been named the starter, I've yet to see a single game from him that I was like, wow, yeah, they're in a good spot here. Still don't get it. I really don't. The Rams, well, the Rams look good. The Rams did what they had to do to win. They moved the ball fairly effectively. They were able to run against the Chicago Bears. Yeah, they didn't have an incredible game, but they did enough to win the game. And that defense is just good. Ramsey pretty much eliminated Allen Robinson from the game. Chicago can't run the ball anyway. And they were pretty much in Nick Foles' lap the entire game. So, overall for the week, I went 10 for 4 in my game picks, which is a damn good week. I'm having actually a pretty good year for the overall picks. Maybe we should start posting them somewhere, my weekly picks. Let me know if that's something you guys want to see. I know I do the 4 game picks, and I talk about why I'm picking them on Thursdays, but maybe I'll just start posting my actual full list of game picks every week. If that's something you guys would like to see, let me know in the comments. But with that, it's time to run out the clock. So we're going to go back to the Washington football team and the Dallas Cowboys. So there was a bad play in this game. Bostic took a cheap shot on Andy Dalton. I don't think it was intentional. I don't believe there was any intent to injure, but it was illegal, and it was a cheap shot. And he knocked Andy Dalton out of the game. It was helmet to helmet. Andy Dalton had started his slide. It was a pretty vicious hit. But the sad part about this was, and every news outlet has an opinion on this, and it's all pretty much the same opinion, is disgust. Not over Bostic hitting him, but the fact that your teammates, no one came to Andy Dalton's defense. Nobody got in Bostic's face. There was no shoving. Are the Dallas Cowboys just neutered? Like, is that the point this team is at right now? They have no balls. I don't care if a guy was 3 times my size. If they cheap shotted one of my teammates, I'd be in their face. And the fact that no one came to his defense speaks volumes about the dysfunction and failure that's happening in Dallas this season. You don't need to see what's going on in the field. What you need to see is the stuff that's not going on, the after the play stuff. Now, I said in my bold predictions that there would be a fight on the sideline. Well, there wasn't a fight, but Andy Dalton sure chewed out his freaking teammates at one point. Maybe that's why they didn't come to his defense. But hey, wake up. Dallas, you're playing like crap right now. Andy Dalton at that point looked like the only person that actually gave a damn the fact that the team looked like shit. Mike McCarthy, I don't know if you're just this bad of a coach, and Aaron Rodgers really did make you a lot of money and make you look as good as you are, or what's going on there. Mike Nolan, he should be fired this week. Mike Nolan should be let go this week. You need to do something. You cannot sit with the status quo for the rest of the season and just hope and expect that everything's going to be okay. If Jerry alludes that there's something big coming, well, I don't know, because that's going to move us into our next part in running out the clock, our next segment, and that's the trade deadline. The trade deadline is coming up, and I do believe this year, more than ever, that we ever seen, I think there is going to be a lot of movers and shakers. And is Dallas one of them? Do they potentially bring somebody in? Is that what Jerry think is going to fix everything? The NFC East is wide open, I agree, but I don't think you can trade for a complete offensive line because that's what you need right now. Oh, and defense. And it's just not there. You're not one player away, Jerry. I hate to tell you, but the Eagles are better than you right now. The Washington football team's better than you right now. That says a lot. Hell, right now, I know you beat them, but the Giants are looking better than you. Much closer to being a complete football team than what's happening in Dallas. And the happiest person out of all of this in Dallas right now is one, Dak Prescott, who, okay, I'm sure he'd much rather be out there on the field and not dealing with his knee injury. But there's nothing happening in the organization right now to show that they do not need him there. Because they were competent when Dak was there. At least their offense functioned. So Dallas, once again, is imploding. But looking at the trade deadline movers and shakers, there are just so many people that should be moving. And it's interesting because, again, you have the NFC least, or the East, whatever you want to call it. The question is, does Washington bring people in? Do they try and help solidify the team? That doesn't look horrible. It's healthy. Sometimes health is a good thing. Or do they try and sell some pieces off? The Texans are another team that absolutely should be selling. I think the Patriots should be selling. Does Atlanta start selling off pieces? And Matt Ryan, Julio Jones. There's some big names that could switch teams here at the trade deadline. So I'm really excited to see how that all kind of figures itself out. And then last but not least, for my final kneel down, something that has nothing to do with football and something we've talked about in a previous show. But Ron Rivera, the coach of the Washington football team, this past Monday was able to ring his bell on his final treatment for cancer. What he has done this season has been remarkable. I've seen firsthand what cancer treatments can do to somebody, and he's continued to coach the team throughout the year. Cancer affects so many people, and I honestly believe that you cannot find anyone that says that they have no connection to cancer. Whether it's a family member, whether it's them personally, whether it's a friend, cancer affects so many people, and it's such a devastating disease. So congratulations, Ron, on completing your treatment. Here's hoping the recovery continues the way it's expected, and you get the all clear sooner than later. So with that, that's our Tuesday show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you're seeing and you haven't done so, don't forget to click the subscribe button down below. Don't forget to share the video. Let's get our word out there. Let's grow our audience. Follow so you don't miss videos. If you have questions, comments, if you want to tell me I'm wrong and I'm stupid, if you want to tell me I'm right, I always like that. But please leave comments, leave questions. Gladly answer them for you. But if at all least, come back Thursday when we pick and predict Week 8. We're at the midway point of the NFL season, everybody. It's crazy. There's people that thought that the NFL season wouldn't make it this far. So I don't know about you guys. All my fantasy leagues have become official now. I said if we made it to Week 7, we were going to go as if it was a full season. So no canceling of seasons anymore for fantasy. With that being said, I'm your host, Mark D. I hope you enjoyed the First and 10 Club. Let's go football.